All right, who wants to go first?
Go for it.
Okay, you talked about incentives today. Can you talk a little more specifically, funding for incentives? What kind of incentives are we talking about? Are we talking about tax? I mean, just give me a little more.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit, but it's really 30,000 feet at this point. We need to work with the commission to refine and hone them. But we're definitely looking at incentives for someone who's interested in building more office space. Because as I said earlier, office space is a real issue for us. So if a business comes to us and says, you know, I want to bring my corporate headquarters here, I need 50,000 square feet or 70,000 square feet. We don't have that 70,000 square feet contiguous space. So it will be incentives, financial incentives. We can't do any kind of tax abatement without getting approval from the voters. And we're not prepared to go out for that at this point. We are looking at facade improvements. We're looking at ways to do some loan guarantees. And we're just looking at a whole toolbox of them, and we'll sort of hone them down as we work with the commission. And some of them are the same as the CRA and the DDA, but they'll be for areas outside of both of those jurisdictions.
Right, and it's when it's from outside, where can the funding come for something like that?
Well, it'll have to be budgetary from our general fund, you know. One of the things that FOCA does, for example, is they have money in their reserves. I think they have set aside like about $5 million in their reserves. And they only use it when they need it. And so, you know, we might look at something like that, but we have to explore all that yet.
Could you do that in the middle of, I know you budget obviously every September, but in the middle of the year, could you alter the budget?
We could look at the reserves, but certainly not to the extent that we'll do in October when we do the new budget.
Is there a limit of how much you'd want to spend for a business?
Yeah, well, there will definitely be limits. I don't know what those limits will be, but there will definitely be limits. Yeah.
I'm just thinking back to last year, economic theme for a second year is a big push. How do you think last year went in the big picture?
We had a great year. This past year has been, you know, our planning revenues are higher than they've been since 2005. We've doubled our construction value, and we have our permits that have been let permits. They've increased significantly. So we have. I'm really bullish. I'm really bullish on West Palm Beach. You know, a lot of good things going on. A lot of really responsible development.
I was looking at last year's speech. You mentioned Tamarind Avenue becoming safer and cleaner. We have new street lights there. The economic czar has been hired. When you look at...
Have we hired him at that point? I don't think we'd hired him at that point.
No. What was one of the things you were hoping to do in 2012,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Tamarind, you know, there's just so much you could talk about in 20 minutes, which is really what they give us.
Right.
And Tamarind, we have hired additional security for Tamarind. There has been a definite change in the level of crime there. We've done a whole streetscape that we've been working on there. So we're you know, plugging away at it. It takes time. You do a little at a time to turn a neighborhood around like that.
I may have missed this. I didn't hear much about this after the speech, but using private donors to develop the waterfront, how's that working?
That's definitely moving. We've hired somebody who is putting together a 501c3 so that we can accept donations that will be targeted particularly for the waterfront. And
is there a vision or the kind of thing you'd want to see there?
well, you know, we're still waiting for a final report from Ed Euler, the guy from Millennium Park in Chicago, and we should be getting that in the next month or so. And then we're going to take that and start talking to people about contributing to move that plan forward. But we've got the 501c3 open. Actually, Terry Maples, who used to be involved with the zoo, who's an outstanding fundraiser, is working with us on that.
In hindsight, something you would have wanted to do in 2012 you didn't get to for any...
Oh, tons of things. Tons of things. You know, I wish we were farther along in this incentive thing, but, you know, it took a while to find the right person to fill that economic development. I wish we were farther along on South Dixie Highway. I thought we might be farther along. But, you know, it's a process and it takes time. There's lots of things that have started that will continue to grow and develop.
Did you think things would take as long as they have when you set out to?
No, I didn't. I guess I might have been a little naive about that. But, we are a bureaucracy.
Yeah.
This is your second State of the City address. I know when you ran for mayor, 2 years out, you were already raising money. I mean, are you definitely going to run for re-election?
I'm not answering that question.
So,
It's
yeah.
too early. It's too early to answer that question.
So you haven't
I love
decided.
my job. I love what I do. I love working in the city. I think we've had a lot of good successes. So I don't see why I wouldn't run.
You wouldn't need to prepare as far in advance this time, because like I said, last time you were already raising money 2 years out.
Yeah, I've been told that I probably need to decide this spring, for sure.
Okay.
But, you know, as I said, I have a great job.
He sent the governor a letter on Monday with concerns about FSU staying in West Palm. Any feedback yet on that? And
No, you know, we've decided that we're going to do an all-out campaign because it's about economic development here in our city. We are on the verge of building a very dynamic cluster of businesses that revolve around digital animation. You know, the Defense Department uses it, medical companies use it, of course, movies, and FSU is a critical partner in that. They have a lot of connections with the field. They're an outstanding film school. I was reading some of the accolades. You know, they are certainly one of the best in the country, if not the world, really, film schools.
so you're prepared for a fight if it comes to it to keep them there?
We're going to do whatever we can. You know, we're going to lobby really hard. We're going to talk to the governor. We're going to talk to the Board of Governors and make sure they understand that they're talking about jobs here. We're talking about economic development. We're talking about jobs for our people here in the city and the opportunity to build a new cluster. You know, the state was very anxious to get Scripps off the ground. I'm hoping they're going to be as anxious to get this digital media cluster off the ground.
Maybe remind people what's at stake. If this project pulls out of here, what does the city lose out?
Well, we've invested $2 million in the digital media curriculum that was developed for FSU. So that money, while it directly went to FSU or went to Digital Domain, went to FSU to develop the digital media curriculum. And there probably wouldn't even be a digital media school program if we hadn't invested that money in it. So, you know, FSU has this program now because we invested in it. And that's the extent to which our investments have been made to this point. But we have money that we had set aside in our CRA when we were working with Digital Domain to use to attract other people, other businesses to this cluster. So we see, you know, a huge opportunity to build a really important industry here in West Palm Beach.
Have you received the names of the committee members yet? I know it was one of the things you were requesting.
I have seen them, yes.
Have you already been in contact with them?
No, not yet.
Is that something you're planning soon to reach out to them?
Absolutely.
The Florida Inland Navigation District had some concerns over the Palm Beach Maritime Museum. I know you received a letter and we just wrote about it as well. Do you believe the museum is living up to its agreement with the city?
I think that the museum needs a lot of work. And we have talked with them on a number of occasions, the people who operate the museum. They have tried, to their credit, you know, we have asked them to do some things and they've done them. They've tried to have more events there and got things going. I think it's very difficult, and as I said, it needs some sprucing up, it needs publicity, it needs more events occurring in that area. So we'll see.
Would it ever get to the point where the city would say, you know, hey, we're giving you a $10 a year lease and you're just not doing what we expected?
You know, I hope that we don't have to get to that point, but if we have to, we will.
Have you had any discussions with them about that specifically?
Oh, About,
About the lease itself and that, that you are supposed to live up to certain standards?
well, we have had discussions with them about the standards and the fact that the find has some concerns, as do we, about what's occurring there. How can we make this more vibrant, a more interesting place to be? So yes, we've had those discussions.
And has the city looked into its rights at all about the lease and what it could do to get out of the lease? I mean, has it come to that?
Sure.
And do you know what it would take to get out?
I don't.
Okay,
Any other questions?
What else?
all right.
You can tell
Thank
me
you.
Anything else you want to?
Anything else I should talk about? Trying to think.
No. I think,
I mentioned in my speech that I was really excited about the proclamation of priorities that NCON came out with. And I think that they have done a really amazing job as a neighborhood, laying out what's important to them, and then reaching out and saying, we want to work with you, we want to do this together. And that's really what we have to do, and I applaud them for that good work that they've done.
I know last year you said you set out to make this a world-class city. How close, how many steps have you taken, and how many more do you think?
Oh gosh, we've
you
taken a
gotta take?
lot of steps, and there's always a lot of steps to go. But we won the City Livability Award this past year from all of the cities our size. We're getting recognition as an entrepreneurial city. We've got young people working with us and helping us, and that's what we want to do. We want to keep our young people here. I speak at that PDAU graduation every December and May, and I always say to them, I hope you stay here. And now I've run into about 3 or 4 people, young people, who said, I was at graduation when you spoke and I stayed here. So, one of them is the assistant stage manager at Palm Beach Drama Works. Another one is works at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I think, in a management program. So, that's really what we want to see happen.
I have another question for you. About the beginning of December, I believe, sometime in December, you were going to put an agenda item on about public comment, moving it to the beginning of the meetings, and then you said you were going to push it back one meeting because there was a long agenda, and it's been several meetings since then, and I was wondering what happened to that item.
Well, that was really a request from Commissioner Materio, and it just hasn't come up again.
And is that something you think will go, is that up to her, or is that something that will go on the agenda?
I just have to see where the interest of the commission is on that.
How's the Ideas website going? That we launched last year?
Yeah, last year, right after I got a whole bunch of emails from people and, some interesting
Tapered
ideas.
off after that?
Yeah.
Any standout ideas?
Oh, some interesting ones, build a pedestrian bridge from the convention center to City Place so people don't have to cross Okeechobee. But, that's sort of pie in the sky, but it's such a legitimate question. Getting across Okeechobee is a challenge. And when we had the Urban Land Institute, the Congress for New Urbanism here, they said, put parking on Okeechobee and that will take care of it. And we're like, oh, I could just see parking on Okeechobee, oh my God. We're not going to do that, don't write that. But, so we had ideas like that.
And going back to that public comment, because now I was wondering, so how do you feel about it? You say, see how the commission feels. Do you want to keep it at the end of meetings?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, I think because we have a lot of people who come to do business in the city, and they come to city commission meeting to conduct that business. And we want to take them in a timely manner. We don't want them to have to sit and wait. When we did have it early on, people couldn't get to it by 5 o'clock, if you're working. 5 o'clock is too early for you to show up. So there are pros and cons.
What about like a time, and it was brought up a time certain, 6 o'clock, and the public can come in, because I know there's been a lot less public discussion than there has been in the past.
I don't think that works at time certain, because then you're in the middle of something and you have to stop everything. And whoever happened to get work done, get their business addressed to in the beginning, they're lucky. The ones who are still waiting are going to still have to wait. So,
What about having 2 days, one for comments and one for the meeting itself?
I never thought about that.
Well, when they do a time certain, they finish the item they're on, like let's say the
Right.
item starts at 5:40, you know, the one that ends closest to 6.
But it interrupts the flow of the business meeting, which, you know, I don't think it's a good idea.
But does it bother you at all that less residents have come out than in past years since they moved it? And we're talking a few years, but since they moved it. there's been
Well,
less.
you know, I think I would like to have more dialogue, and, you know, it's not always possible for people to come to a meeting in an evening. So I think one of the things that we've done here, you know, with Elliot's help, is open up other avenues of dialogue. We've got the coffees that we're doing, the web page, you know, Twitter, Facebook. So, you know, we need to be looking at more unconventional methods to interact with the public, or maybe more conventional now that everybody's doing it. But, you know, it's not like the only place we can talk to the mayor and the commissioners is at city commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.